All right, we're dropping in here, episode 1 of the What's on Bobby's Mind podcast, which is going to be much different than actually what's inside of my mind because I can't share everything with you. I got to keep this somewhat clean. But let's start off by telling you who I am and why I'm even having this podcast. So, again, Bobby Russell. I'm currently the VP of sales over here at my carrier. But I've been on a wild ride, not with just this company, but ever since I started in this industry. So I was fortunate enough to have a father that worked in the LTL industry. He was a truck driver all the way up to a RDO for a little company called Motor Cargo. Extremely high value, a really good quality carrier. I was lucky enough to kind of learn a little bit of the ropes there, coming in on Sundays, doing some dock work. And then finally moving over, working for Bestway when it was Bestway, turned into Redaway, jumped over, worked for Old Dominion for a little bit, spent a ton of time dock, inbound, outbound, hustling, you name it, covering some dispatch stuff, OS&D work. I kind of bounced around everywhere, had good exposure, good experience there. Then I was lucky enough to kind of flip over from that and start out kind of in the shipper world. Started out for a company here that originally was Premier Solid Source. A lot of you guys might have remembered that. It was the fastest growing company in Arizona back in the early 2000s when it came out. It was the acrylic countertop. Eventually got bought out by LG, the Korean company that you're familiar with, electronics and everything else. Huge company, world's largest producer of air conditioners, yada, yada, yada. I worked there and got a ton of exposure, like I said, from that shipper side. Rolled out their first WMS, rolled out their first TMS, eventually grew to 10 warehouses across the country, was able to learn packaging configuration, how we were able to take our stuff out of the LTL and truckload environment and make it suitable for intermodal. Was able to get exposure into international ocean there. From there, I flipped over from LG and I left and went to work for my father's 3PL that he started up with a business partner of his. Got a ton of exposure really to the business admin side of this industry into all facets, from solution selling to project management, all the way down to helping facilitate and manage AR, AP reconciliation, just a ton of exposure. From there, I flipped over to a company that most people are familiar with in this space in Cubics. At the time, and was fortunate enough to really join them at the right time that I got a crash course in SaaS deployment technology and how companies like that really scaled up from cradle to grave. So I got terrific experience there and then flipped back over. And here I am with the My Carrier team. I was fortunate enough to hook up with the co-founders, Mike Bookout and Chris Scheid, very early on. I was employee number 2, and we've been on a wild ride. I think we're moving into our 4th year. We've hired something like our 73rd employee this month. And I just couldn't be happier to see what we've built and grown here. So that's who I am. That's what I am. I'm just a blue collar kid that comes from a blue collar industry, looking to share some of my experience, knowledge, and learn from the community that we can build together. So like I said, this is episode 1. Some of you might find it valuable. Some of you may want to listen. I just want to have some fun and see if we can't braise some interesting topics. I'll cover things from inside of the industry to outside of the industry, general sales stuff, all the way down to just maybe tips and tricks on how I personally get through my day. So I hope you guys will join us for episode 2, 3, 4, everything we bring to you in the future. And I hope to bring some value and maybe we can learn from each other. All right, so we're going to jump into our first topic here, and I was just talking about this the other day, so it's kind of top of mind. But I was telling somebody about the first time I ever actually deployed a TMS within organization from the shipper side of the fence, right? So I was a shipper. I had my own warehouse here locally I managed, but we had 10 other facilities across the country. Our headquarters was in Atlanta. That's where customer service currently was. So all the orders, everything that had to get produced every day came from headquarters in Atlanta. So like prior to that, I had started with this company. There were several employees in the warehouse. They found out that LG was buying the company, and all of a sudden, everybody walked out the door. They weren't sure what was going to happen, and I was the only employee in the building. I literally had to do everything, and I quickly learned that if I don't have tools to scale the job, This just wasn't happening. I can't pick, pack, pull, grab every sales order, communicate to sales, send out tracking emails. I was working 10, 12 hours a day. Finally, some of the other employees came back. We scaled back up to a team of 5 or 6. But at that point, it was so obvious and in my face, like, I can't go website to website to website and search for these rates. I can't just sit here and hand write things down all day. Like, it was a super manual process. I mean, I even knew that as a young man coming into it. Like, why would they tell me to do things this way? Um, and it was awesome. We got our first hands on our first piece of technology, albeit at the time, it was delivered by a 3PL, right? Because there wasn't a lot of options in the market. I couldn't go get a MyCarrier, a Cubix, a FreightView. Those options weren't there at the time. So we got deployed through a 3PL, but I immediately saw the huge efficiency gains that we had. I was able, like I said, with 10 warehouses across the country, I think some of the biggest challenges shippers have is the fact that they have to be stuck operating in silos, mainly because there's no way to really collaborate and share that information. Not to mention the supply chain or the shipping department is often like the bastard child of the organization. It's a cost center. They're spending money on packaging, employees, everything to get freight out the door. They oftentimes don't really understand the investment that a TMS brings to the table. It just gets viewed as an additional cost. Where we were lucky at the time was obviously we didn't incur that additional cost for purchasing software because we were riding off the back of a 3PL, but I did lose it in the margin they were making on my freight. But nonetheless, the efficiency gain was huge, right? I was able to immediately share everything with CSRs in Atlanta, and they didn't have to come to me for information anymore. It was hyper efficient. They could get in self-service, get their tracking information, send tracking to the customers, which, oh, by the way, were fabricators who had to install this stuff in somebody's house on a specific date. So it was hyper critical. So just getting that off my plate probably saved myself 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, just communicating with that team. Now, the other huge savings for me was my accounting department and increasing the accuracy of my rating, which was huge. We had a lot of problems, right? With invoice inaccuracies was probably hovering around 12%. So we're able to really streamline that with a much smoother AR/AP accountability and resource center for my accounts payable team. And it was huge. So once I was able to leave that shipper knowing everything we did, I was able to translate and roll that into every other avenue that we've done. It was huge for me to be exposed to that at an early age. And what shippers have access to today is awesome. I could deploy a solution like MyCarrier across 10, 15, 20 locations, integrate all my carriers over API, and directly connect myself to the carriers I work with today. I could put myself in that shipper of choice column, because I'm communicating to them early. I'm giving them everything they need for planning. I'm easy to do business with. And I think it's something that shippers now have more access to than ever. And there's really no reason not to be having some type of system of record like a TMS in place to help you manage your business. So I just wanted to share that with you. That was one of my first experiences rolling out a TMS. And you want to talk about immediate efficiency gain just in month 1, it's there. It's just more of managing the change management, which if you do it right is a really easy deployment. So I just wanted to share that experience with me. If you're interested in learning more about that, feel free to send me DMs on LinkedIn, send me emails. I'm very public and open. Even my cell phone number's on there. So I'm always interested in hearing from the community, but as a shipper, I just couldn't imagine operating my business without some form of TMS and automation of the shipment lifecycle. I just couldn't do it. So those are my thoughts on that. I'll be back with you guys next week, episode 2. If you guys are interested in more topics, feel free to chime in on them. But I think next week, what we'll do is talk about interconnected systems and how APIs are really changing the industry, whether you're aware of it or not. So thanks for listening.